This is one module in a 21-part series that the York Group has developed to provide guidance on key elements of a cloud business model, and I would encourage you to spend time going through the rest of the series. One of the biggest challenges for companies that are extending their business into the cloud, whether they are ISVs, resellers, or services companies, is understanding the changes to their business. So what changes? First of all, you will need to come up with a subscription pricing model. If you are selling an on-premise perpetual license, how much should you charge for a monthly subscription? Moving to a subscription model changes your cash flow dramatically. How do you manage this transition? One of the biggest changes, and often one that is underestimated, is the impact on sales and marketing. Sales compensation and sales roles change, but there's also been a dramatic shift in marketing, away from traditional push marketing to a more buyer-centric approach. In many cases, the target market will be different. Some companies want to avoid cannibalizing their on-premise sales, so don't want to sell software as a service to their regular prospects. Others move to a subscription model to open new markets. For example, selling more to small and mid-sized companies that might not have the budget to pay for perpetual licenses. And the contractual relationship with your clients and partners changes. You might use a service level agreement instead of an end-user license agreement. You have to decide whether you want to have a month-to-month agreement or lock your clients in for longer terms. Finally, customer support is undergoing changes as well. Because the transaction value is lower, companies are using more automation to support their clients, as well as building communities where users help each other before contacting the vendor. And that is all that changes. Other than pricing, cash flow, sales and marketing, target markets, contracts, and customer support, everything else in your business model stays the same. Yes, there are a lot of moving parts, and this is what concerns so many companies. So the question they ask is, what is the right formula for success? This is the most common question we get, so we spent some time pulling together our experiences and our research to come up with a formula that is simple and easy to remember. The formula for success is... Any questions? No? Then I guess my job is done. The reason for using this slide is because when there is uncertainty, there is a perception of complexity, and building a successful cloud business doesn't have to be as difficult or complicated as many people think it is. At the end of the day, every business, regardless of the product or service, comes down to three basic principles. Somebody makes something, somebody sells something, and somebody buys something. Since the beginning of commerce, this is what it always comes down to. And as a company, it is your objective to find the best and least expensive way to make something without compromising quality, and then find the best way to sell the solution, and finally, make it easy for clients to buy the product and get the necessary support. So, let's look at the key elements of a cloud business model. I will start by using the build, sell, buy model to show how the business model typically works for on-premise software. Your goal is to get your product into the hands of as many end users as possible, and you basically have three ways to do this. First, you can sell direct. This can be a direct sales force for more expensive, complex solutions, or web-based sales and delivery for simple, high-volume products. Second, you can go through partners, and there are many categories of these. They can include SIs, resellers, managed services, and OEM white label partners. The common thread is that they have the direct contact with an end user and ideally spend their own time and money on selling and supporting the solution on your behalf. And finally, some products can go through two-tier distribution. These are normally high-volume, standardized solutions sold through a large network of partners where it makes sense to use a distributor to handle the payment and delivery logistics. Now, let's apply the same build, sell, buy model to cloud solutions and see what changes and what stays the same. In the build phase, you have to make a choice. Do you go multi-tenant, rewriting your solution so they can run on Azure as a platform? Or do you take your .NET solution and host it on Azure as infrastructure? We'll come back to this in the next module because it is one of the first and most critical decisions you need to make. You still need marketing and sales. You can't simply post your solution on a marketplace or app store and hope that the world will beat a path to your door. But as mentioned earlier, there are significant differences in marketing and selling a SaaS solution, and in a separate module we'll walk you through those differences. On the buy side, you will still want to make it as easy as possible to provision the solution and to provide after-sales support. The thing that really makes a cloud business model different is automation, and it impacts every aspect of the business. Because subscriptions generate less cash up front, it is essential to reduce the costs of building, selling, provisioning, and supporting the product, and this can best be done through automation. So, if automation is so important, what is it? It's the infrastructure, the plumbing you need to reduce human involvement and drive down your costs. Again, looking at it from the build, sell, buy model, we can identify the elements that can be automated. In the build phase, it involves licensing, installation, provisioning, managing, maintaining, and upgrading the application. For most applications, the licensing process has to be quick and easy so that it doesn't become a barrier to sales. Some companies ask us why we include installation and upgrading on the list because the perception is that SaaS is all browser-based. The reality is that many pure SaaS solutions require client software to be installed with the user. Think about storage solutions such as OneDrive, backup software such as Mozy and Carbonite, or online meeting software such as Skype. All of them require client software, which means that installation, patching, and upgrades have to be seamless and painless for the end user. On the sell and buy side of the equation, you will want to use as much marketing automation as possible to reduce the customer acquisition cost, a key metric we will discuss in more detail in a separate module. You'll want to decide whether you maintain your own storefront and e-commerce site, use a marketplace, or a combination. What are the billing and payment options? Will it be monthly, quarterly, annually? Do you want to build a portal to help manage and support customers and partners? And what can you do to increase the value of a client relationship? It is extremely important to monetize every client relationship that you have. So for ISVs, moving to the cloud can make some things more complicated, especially in getting the business established. I just want to come back to a point I made earlier. Moving to the cloud doesn't have to be disruptive, a completely new way of running your business. Many of the business model elements aren't going to change that much. Let's take a look at the similarities between the business models. With on-premise, there is the initial license sale, which is an important component. But there are usually services revenues for the implementation, and in many cases some custom app development for a particular client. And finally, there is the maintenance contract, which provides a recurring revenue stream that is usually 20% of the license list price. Now, let's look at the cloud business model and see what the differences are. The biggest difference, of course, is the initial revenues coming from the sale, and this is what most ISVs are concerned about. The typical conversion rate for on-premise to SaaS is roughly 50%. In other words, the on-premise license selling for $100,000 would convert to an annual SaaS payment of $50,000. So during the first year, there would be a 50% reduction in revenues from this component. However, as I mentioned earlier, the services component is often the same for SaaS as it is for on-premise. It is just that the services mix might be different. The good news is that the services associated with SaaS are often higher value services. Instead of servers and network implementation, which are low-margin businesses, there are integration and business process reengineering services, which produce higher margins. This is especially important if you're working with partners. The final component is recurring revenues, and this is all good news. Instead of getting 20% for maintenance, you're getting 50% or more of the license price as a SaaS subscription. So on an ongoing basis, you get a much better margin from those recurring revenues. The York Group helps ISVs and services companies that want to expand their cloud business. Our website offers a wide range of resources that you can access at no cost. And if there's anything we can do to help you, feel free to give me a call or send me an email.